Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy from QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
Email Teardown.
We've got an interesting email coming in. This email that you're going to be hearing and watching Jeremy and I tear this down is special because it actually got Jeremy to reply with interest. And as you probably know by now, Jeremy's a tough cookie to crack when it comes to cold emails for more than one reason, but he gets a lot of them and has high standards, so to speak, just because we're very much in the cold email space. So you're going to be hearing about a very good email today.
Yeah, so this email got me to reply and uses a few tactics. It's not perfect, so that's why also we're going to tear it down. And hopefully you're going to get a lot out of it. Jack, do you want to start reading it?
Yeah, I do. And just before we dive into the copy, stick around to all the way through this episode. There's a special treat that comes after this teardown that you're not going to want to miss. Okay, so with that, let's get this cold email teardown started. The subject line is automating interest level detection. Jeremy, you received this.
Yeah, I didn't like that. In fact, I didn't even read it, honestly. I saw it, I say, I don't know really what that means, but I still opened the email, like most people do. So as we mentioned, the subject line is not a critical factor in terms of rejecting an email or not.
So if we wanted to make this subject line a little bit better, given the fact that it's really not a make or break element of a cold email, I want to know, is this an example of using jargon in a subject line? Did you know exactly what he meant when he said interest level detection?
No, absolutely not. And I think you're right. There's a case here for saying Jack and I are big fan of the subject line should be a contract between you and your reader. And here there is no promises in a contract. It's just like something a bit fuzzy. If it was like maybe a great solution for your users, or, then QuickMail, potential new plugin, that'll be like a really spot on intro and that will get me engaged right away. Here at this level, I'm not engaged.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's dive into the copy. It says, "Hi, Jeremy. I'm not from Shanghai, but I thought this idea would resonate with you." Tell us where he's coming from when he introduced the cold email with this line.
Yeah, so in March this year, I was in Shanghai with two other entrepreneurs and I changed my LinkedIn profile to say, "Hey, I'm in Shanghai. If you're a founder, I want to talk to you and meet you." And, we are back in April and I completely forgot about my LinkedIn status because I really honestly, I'm very rarely on LinkedIn. And so I received this email and I say, how does this guy know, I was in Shanghai? I completely forgot about that. So at that point, I said, okay, this guy made some research. He spent some time figuring out where I am and what I do. So I'm definitely going to read the email. So the cool thing is at this point right there and then, I was willing to then read the email and hear him out. And I think from the rest of the email, if we didn't have this first line, I would have trashed it very quickly.
So this first intro, this custom intro sentence set the tone for the rest of the email, and it earned your attention for the next 6 lines that followed. What's interesting from my perspective is you weren't even in Shanghai. Like this custom intro was technically inaccurate.
Totally.
But you could tell that he had done enough homework, and that in itself was enough to get you to read the rest of the email. So if you're listening, even if your custom intro is based on an outdated fact like this one is, it can still show that you've done enough research to get your email read and maybe replied to. So these kinds of merge tags work well. So use them.
Yeah, I think the summary here is it picked up my interest and I wanted to know more. What is he really after?
Okay, so let's find out what he's after. The next line reads, "I'm Diego from the Monkeylearn team, where we are helping companies like Drift, Segment, and Clearbit with text analysis and process automation by using machine learning and NLP techniques." How did that read to you, Jeremy?
I skipped on the first part as we're a big fan of not mentioning who you are and what team you are because I already read it in the email I receive. Yeah, it's always a from.
Right.
And I know also the company. So there was really no added value here. So I skipped it very quickly, this first part.
And just to be clear, you're saying you skipped over, "I'm Diego from the Monkeylearn team," correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. The next part of it, where he's mentioning other companies, is interesting because I'm familiar with one of them. And when he's mentioning that he's providing like text analysis and process automation and and machine learning and NLP, and I'm sure we're going to have something to say about this. But I was internally thinking like, how this company is using their technology and what for? Because I know they're a data provider, and therefore I was trying to make sense of how they use their software or how they could benefit from it. And of course, as I kind of like hinted, this really wasn't obvious because of all the jargon that was thrown at me and then seeing what stick.
So could it be that the companies that Diego name dropped here, was that a big win for keeping your attention to show that they've got enough social proof to let you know that that's a legitimate company that you may want to consider?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because I use one of them.
Okay, so we nailed the name dropping, the social proof element here. Now, the second half of this next line, or this current line we're talking about, says these companies, we help with text analysis and process automation by using machine learning and NLP techniques. I get the feeling that this was a bit much at this stage, right?
Again, I'm very fond of conveying benefits to your reader. And here it's not benefits, it's only like sort of feature. And I have to do the mental exercise of figuring out how am I using that for any type of benefit. So at this stage, I was pretty much completely lost. I just knew that, he piqued my interest as to mentioning something specific about me. Then he kind of was sort of like legit because some of the company I use are using his technology. So obviously they're gaining a benefit, but I still don't know what it is at this stage. So I'm still confused.
Okay, so if you're listening, one of the takeaways that line could have been improved with is, instead of adding on with text analysis and process automation by using machine learning and NLP, maybe just simplify that and take it from a feature to a benefit. So maybe it's, hey, we're helping these companies make sense of their cold email data. That may have helped just clarify things a little bit at this stage.
Yeah, on name dropping a specific problem that people usually have with the sort of solution that they're providing.
Even better. Okay, we help companies like this solve XYZ. That's probably even better.
Exactly.
So let's continue. The next line reads, as a sales rep, I had to research companies like QuickMail, then he name dropped a few competitors, and so on, to identify which tool to use in our processes. Now, reading this, it's pretty obvious that this is perhaps another sentence that's completely customized just for companies like QuickMail, because it's not relevant unless you're Jeremy or a handful of other people. Did you get the same impression?
Yes. At the same time, I was like super confused on this line now. Because, okay, we're going to obviously drop the as a sales rep. I don't think he adds anything in the email. In fact, he actually subtracts things because I'm less willing to talk to sales rep than I am to founder. And my original thinking when I read the email was he was the founder of Monkeylearn. So he's already like underselling him straight away, which actually brings nothing. So he had to research companies like my company. So that's kind of weird. Like, why is it mentioning my company? And then he mentioned some competitors that are relevant. And I was like, okay. So he's researching everyone. And then to identify which tool to use in your process. So now I'm confused. Is he going to be a client or a provider? I'm not sure anymore, because this line really feels like he's one person just doing research on what best cold email tool to use.
So do you think it would have been better just to strike this whole line out of the email?
Not necessarily. I think it's great that he mentioned my other competitors, but I don't think the angle is correct here. So instead of using to identify which tool to use in your process, it would have been better to say to identify which solutions to work with.
Right.
Because the first line is about we are helping those companies solve a problem. So the next line shouldn't be like we're looking at all those companies to help us. It's two different type of messages that confuse a hell of a lot out of me.
Now, I can add one thing here. With a little bit of editing, this line probably would have been much more effective if he would have used the fox and the crow here.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
So if he said, I had to research company like QuickMail, X, Y, and Z, and so on to identify which tool to use. By the way, I love the user interface that you guys built in your dashboard. Or I think the groups or the trigger feature that you guys have built out is brilliant.
Even better, I would have said something like, but QuickMail is my favorite. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, so a quick little tweak there would have made that a lot stronger. Let's move on to the next line. This is when it came to my attention that QuickMail could make use of Monkeylearn to detect interest level, and I was wondering if you would be interested in offering your customers a way to automate this on a customized level.
Finally, I kind of get an understanding of what he's suggesting here. But again, it's a lot of work on my part. And it comes at the end of the sentence.
Right.
Offering my customers a way to automate their detection of interest. And I was like, okay, now I got it. And even though it was still convoluted as a sentence, this is when it came to my attention that QuickMail. You can change that to looking at QuickMail, it sounds obvious that, it's just it's way too long. As there's a lot of beat around the bushes instead of just going straight and saving my time and showing respect for my time in general.
So obviously this line, though it was a bit beating around the bush, it was not cutting to the point quick enough. It did get your attention, but I'm thinking that when he wrote, QuickMail could make use of Monkeylearn to detect interest level, I'm thinking this is still a feature. It's not getting down to your customers benefiting from it. So what I would have liked to see is something like QuickMail customers could potentially use this to automatically mark emails positive or negative so that they could create smarter A/B tests.
Yeah.
Using positive reply rates. I think that's just taking the workload off of you and making it dead simple how this can help you and your users.
No, totally. Especially that Diego actually didn't automate everything. He actually just sent manual emails. So a little bit more research would have brought so much more power to his email.
Okay. Now, I believe there was a bit of a timing issue behind here that sort of encouraged you to reply. Were you in the mindset of thinking about this kind of technology, and did that add to your decision to reply?
Yeah, you obviously know the answer here, Jack.
I'm fishing for it, yeah.
So we just finished episode 46 talking about how AI can handle responses. It wasn't published yet, so we couldn't really piggyback on this one. But the timing was absolutely perfect because even for I was on the camp of not really believing that will happen anytime soon. Him coming with this type of email really picked up my interest. And I was really willing at that point to say, hell, let's just have a talk and then let's see what benefit that can actually provide, or if the technology is at that stage where it's useful and people will benefit from it.
Is it safe to say that the custom intro sentence and the sentence we just read about how QuickMail could make use of this, is it safe to say that those two sentences single-handedly got you to reply to this email?
Yeah, I think dropping competitors also added a sort of timing thing here. I couldn't put it on my back burner because he's going to talk to my competitor kind of thing. So I kind of have to act right now. But, in this case, if he didn't have dropped them, I would also have replied. That's a fair point.
So let's move on. We got 2 more lines to go. Next one reads, we have helped other companies achieve this, and I believe your users could make a great use of such feature. In my opinion, this could be an interesting topic for a follow-up email, meaning just getting into some ways that QuickMail users could use this kind of technology to their advantage to create better cold email campaigns. I think that would be a powerful email because you obviously care about your customer's success. And if he can show you, let's say, 1 or 2 ways in a follow-up email how this is going to be easily beneficial to all of your users or most of them, that's kind of hard to ignore if you're a customer-focused company.
Yeah, 100%. Shall we move to the CTA?
Yeah, let's do it. Call to action reads, could we set up an exploratory call with you or someone from your team to discuss this and other ideas? And for those listening, the word exploratory call is hyperlinked with a link to his calendar.
Yes, more than that, actually, because I remember it's a Sidekick link. So I knew that as soon as I click on it, he's going to get notified about it. My curiosity was about what calendar is he using as well, just because, I'm wired that way and I'm very curious about things. But I knew that if I click on it, then he will get the notification of it. At that stage, that was okay because I knew I wanted to reply to him. So I just went ahead and then booked a time that was suitable for me. But if the email didn't convince me, I wouldn't have clicked on it as well because it was, a sidekick link. So I don't like being tracked for the sake of being tracked.
Curious to get your take on this. What do you think about saying, could we set up an exploratory call with you or someone from your team? Did you feel?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm interested because I don't know if that rubbed you the wrong way or if that helped you make a decision.
No, that's a fantastic point. I forgot to mention. It actually rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. Why?
I was actually more disappointed at this stage. Reason for it is if you go through actually researching someone, mentioning that, I'm not in Shanghai, a really super quick check would have been like, how many people are working at my company? And then you will see that de facto, I'm the only one anyway. So there is no point saying delegating to someone else, like saying someone from your team, because it's obvious that if you've done your research, I'm the only one that could actually answer this kind of thing.
A bit of research could have fixed this error. By the way, something I like to do is in, maybe the third or fourth follow-up, if I've tried to set up an appointment or get a reply from this particular person and I've failed after, let's say, 3 or 4 cold emails, I've tried sending an email that basically said, hey, it's been a few messages. I've been trying to get your take on XYZ. Is there someone else that might be better suited for this question? That way, you're going directly for the person you're emailing, and you're giving them a chance to refer someone in later messages if it's appropriate. But also, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was somebody who was better suited for this question, even if he said, hey, Jeremy, can we get a call set up? You would probably have referred him to the right person anyways. He didn't need to say, or someone else from your team, correct?
Absolutely. I don't think it brings anything.
There you go. Okay, so the message concludes. Cheers, Diego. Anything else to take away from this cold email before we reveal the surprise that our listeners are going to get to enjoy right now?
No, I think we should do it. We should do it straight away.
Here's some good news for anyone out there who's looking to get a deeper look into proper cold email research, customization, and just a great approach to writing cold emails that get replies. We were lucky enough to have Diego, the author of this cold email, to agree to tear down this email and just reveal his entire process for writing cold email. And we asked Diego a bunch of questions that should help you adopt a bit of a mindset shift when it comes to writing your emails and also researching prospects and taking this cold email game to a much more personalized level.
And here is the interview.
Enjoy.
Diego, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for inviting me.
We're excited to talk some cold email stuff. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Such an honor.
Diego, you can tell us about Monkeylearn and then your approach here with cold email.
So Monkeylearn is a startup we have been going on for 5 years almost. What we actually do is text analysis with machine learning and natural language processing. That's kind of the problem with us, is that I cannot tell you in a few words what we actually do because we are a very horizontal tool. I can probably help you understand what Monkeylearn does with a concrete example. So the specific example I went through when contacting Jeremy was I discovered that a lot of tools for automation, for email automation, offer analysis like open rates, click rates, and things like that. And I also discovered that some of them are trying to understand if an email was replied, and if the email was replied, if there was any interest in, or if they booked a meeting. And we have for some time discovered that we can actually automate part of the process of understanding what the reply answer is about. So is it interesting? Is it a bounce? Is it not the right person? Is out of the office? So these are things that you can directly code, like saying, okay, if the person mentions I'm interested, then it's interested. Or you can actually train a machine to learn from examples of actual responses. So what we actually did is feed a Monkeylearn model with actual email responses that we got. And these email responses were then classified into things like, this was a bounce, this was an out of office, this was I'm interested, this was book a meeting. With that specific use case, I said, I think that I can sell this to different companies that actually do email automation for outbound specifically. Then I used like 2 years ago, QuickMail, I recall. What I saw is that you were starting to actually offer this, this was a positive email or this was a negative positive response or negative response. And I said, maybe that's something that you would be interested in. And so I just went ahead and say, okay, I have a concrete offering. I have the persona. These guys are actually influencers. I can actually reach out. Getting the information for the email obviously is not that hard. The hardest part was, okay, how do I get his attention onto this?
One thing you had mentioned among a lot of good sort of takeaways there was your research activity that you did to get Jeremy to reply. I'd love if you dove in and told us a little bit about how you approach cold email research, if you have a certain recipe, if you will, that you follow.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously I have some sort of recipe. If not, you cannot productivize the process, but it changes all the time. It's something live. First of all, you need obviously a concrete offering. And since Monkeylearn is such a horizontal tool, I cannot go ahead and just tell you, hey, are you interested in text analytics or text automation? That's a terrible way to approach someone, which we did back 3 years ago or something like that. So we learned the hard way that no one is actually interested in telling them you have something so generally that they cannot relate to it.
Telling people about features means nothing unless you actually can link it to a benefit they will actually get. People buy benefits, not features.
Of course, especially for us that we have such widespread use cases within a company or within a same team, we have to actually find that. And once we, say we are going to go after, for example, in this case was classification of outbound sales responses so that you can actually automate processes. We need to define, who are the accounts that could be interested in this? So we need to do a research on the account level. And then we need to understand if there's a specific persona within that company that's going to be interested. So I'll try to define the profiles of these people. Are they, are they managers? Are they actual people that go through pain point? Are they directors? Are they VPs? Or is it just the founders that are going to buy this? There needs to be something like a hype or something like a cool factor in it, which no one else can buy, actually. Once we have defined those things, we go ahead and we have used so many tools so far. But let's say, for example, LinkedIn Sales Navigator to actually find the accounts. And then you jump into the accounts, from the accounts to the actual people. And then from the people, define, who should I contact first within this set of people that I decided? And then you go into the public information that is about them. So you can go to social media. And so, I try always to identify 3 things from my sequences. One is something that as a personal level or individual level, someone would caught his attention, like I'm not in Shanghai, for example. Something at the business level that can be the offering, or can also be something that more related to, I know you're hiring more people on this department. I can help you with automating process, so you do not need to scale just with hiring. So that's something like at the business level. And then something interesting at the use case level. So that's with those 3 main things, I can actually build a sequence or a template and go from there.
It sounds like you're starting at the account level first. So identifying the companies that you want to target. And once you get those lists, you find the appropriate people.
Yeah.
The next thing I heard was you're finding 3 sort of talking points for each prospect. 1 is personal. 2 is based on their company. So maybe like they're hiring a certain role. And what was the 3rd one? I want to make sure I don't forget it.
The 3rd one is related to a specific use case. I think for the email I sent to Jeremy was actually mentioned how you structure the future of positive or negative replies.
Do you have any sales tools besides LinkedIn Sales Navigator that you find very helpful?
I've toyed around with so many tools. I cannot mention them all, I think. There's no way I can actually do that. But one tool I've been playing around lately, very good because it streamlined the whole process for a person like me, which is pretty much doing everything by itself. Someone would say physical instead of like full bound. Like I'm doing the initial identification, I'm doing the research, I'm doing the outreach, I'm doing the handling of the pipeline, I'm doing the closing.
Lots of work.
For someone that has to go through the whole thing, and maybe founders, I found that this tool is called Apollo or Send Prospect. It was the name I called a few months back. What I like about it is that you have the whole suite there, right? You go in, you do the whole process in there. I don't think it's that useful if you have already separated your teams and you have already people that do specific things, because it will probably mess everything up. But for someone that like me, which just needs to have everything in one place, I think it's super useful.
I'm wondering, do you have any good resources for picking up tips for cold email outside of the podcast that our listeners might benefit from? Any books you've read, maybe, or any like help that you've got elsewhere that might be useful?
I was going to say, number one resource, listen to this podcast, but
Nice.
But I think there are a lot of interesting things to read. Obviously, you got to go through the classics. Like first, you got to learn some history. And right now in sales, I think we have some history in SaaS sales. Like, for example, going through predictable revenue machine, sales acceleration formula, all the sort of classics of what we do. I would recommend To Sell is Human. I think it's from Dan Pink because it touches upon the human aspect of what we do. I would also recommend read Improv. Obviously, it's something that you must learn more experientially, but it's important to actually know how these things work, like how you can actually think about improvisation during a call. I read somewhere that the Palantir sales team always get like the present the improv book.
Do you know the author for that book? Is it a particular improv book you're talking about?
I think it's called just Improv or Improv. I can send you the link and you can put it in
okay, we'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in show notes, yeah.
A lot of things out there already. Like most of our companies SaaS companies have learned that you need to share and educate. And that's a lot of the new selling stuff. So you can just go ahead and look for companies like yourself, and try to understand how they think about the process. And those are the ones that are making everyone else successful. So learn from there.
That's great. Thank you.
Hey, I have a quick question about, unfortunately, I replied on your first email. Did you have some follow-ups planned?
No. In this case, I was doing a campaign that was just, okay, let's see if I can grab their attention. Just one initial template. I did not have any automated follow-up. I was going to decide that based on opens and based on clicks. It was just a test. I didn't have like a very big list around it. I think it was 19 companies I could touch on. Mm-hmm. So it was very small. Like just to give you an example, for me, 20 companies is a small list. I tend to try to get to 100 accounts at least. From those accounts, I may be getting up to 3 contacts for each account. I don't know. I think 20 companies is very small to actually say, okay, I'm going to automate the sequences and it's not going to be an ongoing process. So it was a lot about timing, and I had your timing right. Just sheer luck and just try it.
So if you're listening, just something to keep in mind, if you have a well-targeted list, but it doesn't happen to be many hundreds of prospects, that still doesn't mean it's a bad list to go after and to put some real thought into, because many times one deal is a huge win. So if you can, put a little bit of work into even just having 19 companies on a single campaign, it could very much be well worth your effort. And it's contrary to this sort of spray and pray approach that it's getting phased out, but getting targeted is exactly why we get to do this webinar today, is because it was crafted just for, in this case, Jeremy. And there's a lot of potential there. So I think it could be well worth anyone's time if you go after the right 19 companies.
Yeah, and those companies could be influencers. So those companies could then, bring massive benefit more than if you had just one client. So you may talk to a reseller, or, in my case, if all my users start to use the technology, that's one level up. You don't have to sell all of those users. You actually sell directly the person that provides you those users. So 19 may actually be a very fine number, because if you close 1 or 2, maybe that brings you a lot more business than actually going after the typical, the end user customers.
Yeah, completely. And you get to learn too. Like if you could not build at least bigger than 19 companies, the TAM is not, the total addressable market is not that big for that particular thing you're trying to target. And you also get a sense if there's any interest around it. So you obviously, if you want to scale that, you probably won't be able to scale it very easily. So you got to put that into context. That particular thing you're trying to sell at the moment is, okay, this is just a shot, but if it works, it has to work with this. It cannot be scaled up. I cannot hire 10 people to actually sell that repeatedly. So within that context, I think that's why I decided to go one by one, just one touch, and that's it.
And do you remember how many people replied to the original campaign?
Well, we got 2 companies replying.
It's like 10%.
It's not that bad. Such a niche use case, it's not that bad.
And that's just for the first touch.
Yeah.
I think they haven't replied because Diego needs to send one more follow-up or maybe 3 more follow-ups.
I know I'm going against the advice here, but I sort of thought that if I wasn't able to cut their attention, like manually doing the template afterwards wouldn't make more sense. I don't know. I just felt lazy, I think.
Yeah.
We're allowed to sometimes. You can say, okay, it's better to go to at least just do the experiment, even though it might not be perfect. And then you can revisit it later. It's not that it's going to be, I don't know. I don't know if I'm giving bad advice here.
No, you can certainly revisit campaigns. One thing I want to circle back to, you mentioned a lot of sort of takeaways that you shared when you talked about the research phase and how you go about crafting the email. What's one thing that you wish you could sort of go back in time and tell yourself when you were just starting out with cold email? What's sort of one takeaway that you said, Diego, this is what you got to know in order to shortcut a lot of things?
Actually talk more with your current customers, learn exactly why they started replying in the first place or why they started being interesting in the first place, and just build from there. I think we try to automate a lot initially or try to scale a lot initially instead of going very, very niche and very, very based on what we actually were providing value at the beginning. I think that took a lot of time for us to learn to it. Our one was not working because we were trying to just be too general about it, I think.
I want to make sure we give you a chance to sort of tell the community if there's a place that they can stay up to date on what Monkeylearn is up to. If you guys have a blog or an active social page, can you sort of tell us where we can stay up to date?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our main channel for distribution is Twitter. So you can just go at Monkeylearn at Twitter and you'll see what we are talking about. We blog a lot because most of our customers are actually very early and need to learn a lot of what it can be done with artificial intelligence. And a lot of the hype needs to be removed. And so that's a lot of part of my work is trying to, okay, this part is hype, this you can actually do. And then just recommend if you're interested in what we're doing is just sign up for a free account, monkeylearn.com. So we are on a freemium plan because we want people to test it out and just see what you can actually do. And that would be the best way to actually get to know a bit more about us.
So last thing for me, Diego, I want to know what's the future or the near-term future for Monkeylearn. What happens in the next 5 years that we're not able to do today? What's going to be the next big thing in artificial intelligence regarding all the stuff Monkeylearn is working on?
I think we see ourselves within a vision that there are many, many tools that you can pick from. That you can actually, you're going to have 100 tool tech stack around you. You're going to be using a lot of this stuff. A lot of the information you're going to be getting is text. A lot of the information that we make explicit as human is text. And you probably want to centralize your text information within one contained system of intelligence. And so what we are thinking about Monkeylearn is that it's going to be your system of intelligence for text analysis. That you're going to be able to use it, it doesn't matter, on customer support, on sales, or analyzing documents or processes. That way you'll get to keep your own intelligence if you want to move from one tool to another. So our main idea is striving towards that, being like a brain, at least how we're targeting the market for text, basically.
Well, I personally can say for me and Jeremy, thank you so much for all the insights and gems you've shared today. We had a blast having you on the show, man.
Thank you very much. It was great being here. It's such an honor that you actually replied and invited me here. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.